The gold and silver pawn shop is pretty much a family business, but after years and years of hanging out around the Harrisons, Chum Lee became a part of the family, despite his obvious lack of expertise and tendency to mess things up. His bestie Big Hoss and his dad Rick are still keeping him around in addition to being a comic relief of the series. He's also a fan favorite and Pawn Stars can't get enough of his epic fails. This popular reality show told us almost everything we needed to know about Chum, but there's still a few things he's managed to keep hidden and behind the scenes. So let's take a look at the things that you didn't know might get Chum Lee fired. But before we do that, make sure to like the video if you enjoy Pawn Stars and subscribe to our channel. Now Rick wants Chum Lee fired, telling Chum Lee, "You know you're not allowed to play with it," in reference to the sword. And Chum replies, "First off, this is no longer your sword because I sold it."
You know you're not allowed to play with it.
First off, that is no longer your sword. I sold it.
Now Chum Lee has millions of fans around the world, but Rick Harrison isn't one of them. Chum's reckless behavior rubs him the wrong way, and it's the root of the animosity between the two men who have never really seen eye to eye. And it doesn't take a genius to realize Chum Lee didn't get the job because he's an expert. He got the job because he's a childhood buddy of Rick's son Corey, and their long-standing friendship is the reason why Chum started working at the store. He was usually behind the counter at the beginning, but once the Harrisons started developing the show, they asked him to join him in the front of the camera. Now, if he was working anywhere else, Chum Lee would have been fired by now, but the popularity of Pawn Stars made that practically impossible. He's the reason why fans still tune into the show on a regular basis, and they don't seem to mind the fact that he's completely useless. Rick Harrison probably doesn't feel the same way, but he's stuck with Chum because he knows firing him wouldn't be good for the show. Now, if Chum Lee's not amazing at anything, making terrible deals is one thing he's actually amazing at. His lack of knowledge is usually the main reason why he's buying worthless items, but that's not always the case. Chum is obviously the least experienced of all the Pawn Stars, and it's obvious his co-workers take him as a joke. Even his childhood friend Big Hoss often makes fun of his incompetence and lack of intelligence, just like everyone else. That's the reason why Chum has an enormous hunger for approval and acceptance, and it cost him a lot in the past. Trying to impress his bosses by buying amazing items usually backfired in Chum Lee's case. He ended up acquiring fake or worthless artifacts and hoped Rick Harrison would give him a pat on the back, but that never happened. Thousands of dollars went down the drain because Chum skipped inviting experts to help him appraise items. He even proved to be incapable of following the simplest directions when Rick gave him a vintage Bob Dylan album and asked him to get his signature. But instead of getting a simple autograph, he made a huge mistake by telling the legendary singer to make it out to Chum Lee. Eventually, Rick was pissed and told him to keep the album because he could no longer sell it.
Someone pawned the base and set it in the back room, and it had fell. And then I don't know who collected the parts and just put it in a box.
Now, it's no secret that Chum likes to mess around behind the scenes, and the Harrisons even caught him in the act. After reviewing video footage from the warehouse, they discovered their clumsy employee was the one responsible for breaking several items while playing around, and definitely wasn't the first time that Chum Lee has trashed valuable items, but Rick and his family finally got used to it. Over the years, one of his most disastrous missteps took place years before the show inception, but his friend Corey still remembers it like it was yesterday. After one customer pawned a valuable bass guitar, Chum Lee leaned it against the shelf and walked away, only to see it shatter into pieces after he came back. And instead of admitting what he's done, Chum put the pieces into the box and pretended like the whole thing never happened. When the guy came back for his item, the Harrisons had to cash out $20,000 because the bass was completely destroyed. And that's all we got in today's video. Hope you guys are really enjoying the content that we are bringing you. If you did like today's video, make sure you leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel to stay in tune with the content that we're bringing on the channel in the future. And we hope to have your continued support. We'll see you next time.